So I've just finished Black Ops 7. Yes, I finished it. It's done. The campaign is over. I had one quick extraction from the end game, but this is solely going to be a campaign review where we talk about the good, the bad, what I enjoyed, what I didn't enjoy. I am not going to get into spoiler territory, though some of the stuff that I really need to talk about kind of does touch on that area. So I'm going to kind of evade around it as much as humanly possible, so do keep that in mind. But what you're seeing in this game is something that they haven't really tried before. It is new, and they are looking at a more futuristic version of Call of Duty Black Ops. This kind of takes place, it's almost like a sequel. Well, it is a sequel to the 2012 Black Ops 2, but it's weird. It's different, and there's a lot happening here that will make you say, WTF? How is this a COD game? But underlying all of that, once you figure out the underlying plot, once it all makes sense, once it starts to click together and the puzzle pieces kind of start to join and the picture starts to form, all of what you're experiencing in this game until the end makes perfect sense. And it all kind of comes together in a culmination to kind of complete the package. Now, essentially, you're a group of four. You're tasked to do a certain thing to go and, infiltrate. And well, when you do at the start of the game, you set off detonators at the factory, and then things go horribly wrong. You're kind of trapped in this room. The main villain, Emma, decides to gas you in the room, and everything takes off from that point. That's where the nexus point starts, and where you kind of start to jump around in time. But the question is, what you're experiencing is essentially flashbacks of past missions that you were involved in. So it's taking you through a lot of missions that were in the previous Call of Duties, but it's kind of displaying it in a different way. You're kind of experiencing them in a way as if you were on a LSD acid trip. And there's a reason for this, but I'm not going to go too much into that because that is severe kind of spoiler territory. Now, I do want to talk about the bad points first because, and not just the bad points, but the conspiracy points as well, because I think there's a lot of misinformation going on out there, and it's pretty disrespectful to Activision. It's really horrifying that, publications like Eurogamer, Games Radar, IGN, Resetera, Xbox Wire, this isn't just Universal stuff. Even the Xbox publications are also feeding just bad information here, wrong information, and all I can believe is that they are lying, and they are actively doing it just for your clicks. Now, number one, let's start with the bad. The game is online only, and it's a campaign co-op. So even if you're playing it in single player, you cannot play it offline. That is a massive no-no. In this day and age when people are constantly screaming about game preservation, not reading the room, especially when something like this recently went to Parliament in the UK, is absolutely diabolical. It's just completely and utterly out of touch, and Activision should be ashamed of themselves. If they're playing single player, it should be offline, which means you can't pause the game. So if you're in a really tight spot, but you're bursting to go to the toilet, you're gonna have to wipe, and it's really that simple. You can't pause the game, and that sucks. Number two, if you are playing single player, your companions aren't around you to assist you because it's a co-op game. You need actual players to come in order to take the roles of those players. You still hear their banter and the talking happening throughout the campaign, which is cool, but you never get to see them, which is a little bit of it, which is a shame. Now, there was a saying going, well, there's a rumor going around, or at least people are saying, it's not really a rumor, this is what they're posting, that when you play the game, there is no saving. So you have to finish the game in one sitting. This is completely false. You can save the game. After every chapter, you can save the game. There is no save in mission, but there is at the end of the mission. It just auto saves when you finish the level. Now, each level is comprised of about 30 to 45 minutes, depending on how you're playing it. So they're not very, very long missions. They're quite short. So this is really a non issue, in my opinion. There's no real need to it. They're talking about checkpoints. Now, checkpoints do exist in the game. Every level has about 2 or 3 checkpoints. And if you wipe, you start off at the nearest checkpoint. Now, if you decide that you can't complete the mission on that day after spending only 20 minutes in there, and you decide that you need to turn off, well, at that point, the checkpoint gets erased and you restart the level from fresh. Now, a lot of people are talking about how this is such a huge chore and you have to start the mission all the way from the beginning. But as I said, each mission is roughly about 30 to 45 minutes long. It's really not that big of a deal. Should they have had checkpoints in the game that saved? Sure. But if you're starting to play a game and you can only spend 10 minutes, this it doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. So none of this is actually explained and none of this is put into context. Now, you're seeing a lot of social media posts about one particular boss fight with Harper, and it looks crazy. Again, that is completely out of context. I highly advise you to not make a judgment just based on that. There's a reason a lot of that is happening, and it makes all the sense once you've started playing the game. And by the time you get to that point in the story, it already makes sense in what is happening and what is going on and why you're experiencing that boss fight in the first place. So again, none of this is really explained. All of the publications, Xbox Wire, Eurogamer, Games Radar, and there's more, right? There's more. They are all openly just deceiving and misleading you. Now, the game, for the most part, you will get really kind of flashbacks of this feels like Warzone. Like there is the Warzone parts are pretty much Warzone. There's no two ways around it. It is pretty much based in Avalon, and a huge chunk of the game is based there. But you do have curated levels as well. You have about 4 or 5 of them, and they are amazingly done. Now, some of them you'll recognize from previous Black Call of Duty Black Ops games, especially one from just last year from Black Ops 6. But you've got like the yacht from I think Black Ops 2 as well in there. So you'll recognize these maps. Veterans will recognize these quite instantly, and it's a nice little nostalgia trip as well. They all of these levels, by the way, have been tweaked. You're accessing new areas on those maps. You're not just rehashing and redoing those, and because of the whole nature of the game being that you're following through flashbacks ranging through a timeline of the Call of Duty franchise, it kind of makes sense that you're revisiting old places that are familiar to you. Key points happen, like there's a whole story aspect with frank Frank Woods, and you know the way it's presented and you are being manipulated, it all makes sense. But again, none of this is truly explained in any of the reviews that you have going on right now. And it's really disappointing. So that's the bad and kind of the good and kind of the synopsis of where the whole kind of game structure is. Now the good. The flashbacks actually work really well. I think they are done in a good way, and the level designs are pretty damn awesome. Now, they are a complete, in my opinion, change from what the traditional Call of Duty is. But maybe the franchise needed this sort of shake up once in a while, and I actually thoroughly enjoyed it. There were the Warzone areas which actually felt like you were playing Warzone, and I think those need to be worked on because they're just horde modes. You go into an area, you click on a button, and I also want to address something that's in the game. They are using AI art. Now, whether you like it or not, this is going to be prevalent in almost every game that you play. No game is going to be exempt from this as AI is taking over everything we do. It is going to become more and more visible in our video games. So honestly, I think at this point, as much as some people don't like it, as much as it can suck, the reality is AI isn't going anywhere. We aren't going to change these corporations' minds by saying, hey, if you use AI, we're not going to play your games, because people are still going to play those games. Knocking points off for this, I think, is not right. At the end of the day, I get it. This is affecting people's jobs, but that has nothing to do with the overall quality of the game. And that is what we are reviewing here, not people's jobs, but the game itself. And in this case, the campaign. So, yes, the game does, from what I understand, use AI for some of the art. And honestly, from while I was playing, I'm guessing it's the artwork because it was pretty standout when you see some of this stuff in the game. But honestly, it's like a fleeting moment. You look at it as you're running past, and that's really it, which kind of explains why they didn't really invest any more time in it than they needed to. But hey, that's just my thoughts on this. Everyone has their own thoughts, and I respect everyone's view on this. I'm just saying, when it comes to me, I'm not going to knock points off just because of the use of AI, because AI is being used everywhere now, and it's not something that's going to go away. And we're not going to change that. That bridge left a long time ago. And as AI has become more and more prevalent, more and more useful, more and more integrated in everyday society now, it's a thing that companies are going to utilize and use. It's just a thing, right? So I'm not going to deduct points for that, but I did want to mention it because it is something that's in the game. It is a talking point. I just don't see it as a negative enough to actually warrant it to have an effect on my overall score. Now, what about the good stuff? The voice acting in the game is amazing. Harper stole the show. He is absolutely awesome. The characters you'll instantly recognize and, fall in love with if you've watched like Heroes or The Expanse or The Walking Dead. You'll instantly recognize these characters from those series and, you know, immediately get yourself immersed. The characters' kind of emotions and portrayals are excellent. I really didn't have any problems with it. Uh, the gunplay was phenomenal. No issues whatsoever. They sounded great. They, you know, were on point. The different weapons kind of felt different enough to warrant you finding your favorite style of weapon to use. The gadgets in there, whether it's the leap, the shield, the sprint, the drones, etc. It's just, they were so varied and so useful. You'll quickly come accustomed to ones that you need for certain missions, ones that are your favorite, ones that they'll really, really benefit you, especially if you're playing solo. Overall, I really thought Call of Duty Black Ops 7 is a good game. It did have some things wrong with it. It's not perfect, and it definitely has room for improvement, whether it's from the fact that it's always online, whether the fact that it's not really following a linear storyline, but it was different and it was trying something new. And I'm not going to discredit that because, in my opinion, based on the way the story was laid out and the way the story ultimately was told, it actually worked. There was no real negative there for me because by the time I got to the end of the game, I was like, okay, this actually makes sense. Now I know what's happening. Now we've come full circle. This is actually logical. This makes sense, right? So, whether you're talking about the music, the gunplay, the gun sounds, the sound effects, the enemies, it it just worked for me. The single difficulty was fine. It scales based on the number of people you have playing with you. That was kind of cool, and I only tried it from single player and two-player co-op, and I noticed a slight bump in difficulty where I wasn't going down almost at all in single player. I was going down a number of times in co-op, so it was getting harder with the number of enemies on display. there's loads of like self-revive items around you to give you a helping boost if in case you do go down. Uh, in terms of just stuff happening on screen, it went from weird to wacky to WTF on a lot of occasions, and you were wondering what the hell is happening. But like I said, it all makes sense once you get halfway through the game to about two-thirds through the game. It's you start to put the pieces together. The game itself is about 5.5 hours long. I'm seeing people doing it in 4 hours. I really don't know how they did it in 4 hours, but it is about 5.5 hours. You can't skip the cutscenes from the first time you watch them, so it's not like they can actually skip it either. So I think the timing also is being mislabeled here. But overall, I was really kind of conflicted in what to give Call of Duty Black Ops 7, whether I would give it a 7, a 7.5, or a 7.8. But ultimately, I think I'm going to stick at a 7 out of 10 for the campaign. And that's simply because of one, the campaign was good, but it didn't feel like a Call of Duty campaign, but it was a really fun campaign. The fact that it's always online is a massive negative for me. The fact that your teammates weren't available in single player mode is a massive negative for me. And the fact that the Warzone kind of parts of the game really felt Warzone rather than its own thing. And they didn't do enough to make you not feel like you're in a Warzone kind of map level. I think is a detriment. So I'm taking 3 points off there. The fact that you can't save, the fact that you can't pause, the fact that you can't save mid mission, even though I don't think that's really important, but I'm gonna add it in there. Those are the reasons why I'm knocking off around 3 points. But ultimately, everything that happened in this game, from the wackiness of the bosses to the creative design, the whole LSD acid trip levels that were taking place, the prison level was pretty much awesome. It reminded me of the Gulag, but just way more expansive and whatnot. The different variety of enemies, it all just culminated to a really cool and fun experience, and one that I would definitely recommend you check out. It's only 5.5 hours long, so it's not over the top in terms of time consumption, but it is one of those games that I think are so different in this day and age that you appreciate the fact that it's just not reading from a script and going down that same rabbit hole. Who knows? Maybe Black Ops 8 or whatever Call of Duty comes out next is going to return to the old form and the old formula. But I appreciate the fact that they tried something different here, and the way that they went about it, in my opinion, actually worked. You've got endgame in this as well. I did only try one mission where you're pretty much in the Warzone area. It is PvE only. You have certain missions where you can go in. You go in, you do your missions, you do your tasks, and then you extract the loot and you level up. And that's pretty much the round loop of it. You fight bosses and whatnot. So that's that. But this isn't a review or looking into that aspect of the game. This is just a campaign. And I can say that I personally had a really good time with it. And the information, the misinformation that's out there is really shameful on those that are actively lying and being disingenuous just to get those clicks. That's my thoughts. If you've played it, let me know what you think in the comment section below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. That's me. And I hope you enjoyed this overview review of the campaign. Right. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Remain legend. I did ask earlier, and people said it was fine. I'll just fix the audio. That should be better. I've just gone to the main lobby. Wait a second. Alright, now we're on quarantine. How many levels after this?
Just 3 missions now.
Including this one.
Yep. Then it puts you straight into endgame, and I need to extract properly in endgame. I'm not starting it all again.
Alright, so what you want me to do is make sure you die.
What was that?